All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Ethan Colbert with Century 21 Parker & Scroggins Realty. Today, I have with me the pleasure of having Ben Hammond, one of the candidates running for mayor. And I'm going to let him go ahead and introduce himself and start talking a little bit about his campaign before we start getting to know a bit about him and what his goals are. So go ahead, Ben.
Thank you, and it's a pleasure to be here with you. My name is Ben Hammond. Like you mentioned, I am running for mayor of the city. I am 42 years old. I've been married to my wife, Mindy, for a little over 20 years. We're raising 4 boys here in the community. We've got Landon, Logan, Lawson, and Lucas.
Oh, nice.
We don't ever get them confused.
Yeah.
We do.
Yeah. I would too.
Yeah, so that's just the foundation of who I am.
That's awesome. That's great. So, and just to dive into a little bit about that, you discussed a little bit about who you are. Right. So, how long have you been here in Sheridan, and what's brought you here?
So, I'm originally from Cabot, Arkansas.
Okay.
I grew up, graduated high school there in 1998. My family and I lived there. A lot of my family still does, but I was going to school and working in Little Rock. This was back in 2000, and I met my wife. She was working and going to school up there as well. So I met Mindy up there, and as we established our relationship and decided that we were going to get married and be together forever, she had a family base here. She grew up here and has been around this community her whole life, her and her parents, and it was a great community to be a part of, so that we moved here and have been raising our family here ever since.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love that. I'm a family man myself, and it sets the core values for who I am today.
Right.
So, I think we can all appreciate that and, feel some sort of similarity to that. How long, you said how long was that you've been here exactly?
That was in, we met in 2000, so a little over 20 years.
20 years. Okay,
like that,
cool.
Yeah.
And so going into what made you decide to get into politics in this area?
Well, I'm going to try to make this a long story short, but when Mindy and I moved here prior to us having children, we did our thing as husband and wife and got to know people and but then at some point, when we settled down, we said, let's just get involved in the community, So that takes me to when I got involved with the local fire department here as a volunteer. And
great. Could you elaborate on that a little bit? Tell us, so you're, a volunteer firefighter. How long have you been doing that?
So since 2008.
Wow. Okay.
So I worked in the fire alarm industry. I started in that industry in 2000. And so fire alarms and life safety systems and working to protect the public, that was kind of in my bones as a career.
Yeah.
And so joining the fire department here just sort of made sense. And to be honest with you, I didn't know a whole lot about it back then. I just knew it was a way to help out.
Yeah.
And so I started as a volunteer in 2008 and just fell in love with it. I mean, the folks around our fire department, the leadership back then, we jumped right into the training.
Yeah.
With a lot of other people too, a lot of other firefighters around the county. So we jumped into training. I just dove headfirst into the fire department. I became the fire marshal for the fire department, and I worked a lot in fire prevention and some code enforcement, and really fell in love with that too. And developed some programs here in the community where we installed smoke alarms in homes and got out and educated the public on fire safety and have just really grew to love it. Well, that led me to the career fire service. So I joined the Little Rock Fire Department as a full-time career. And it was a shift work, 24 hours on, 48 hours off. A completely different world as it relates to the fire service, but you serve the same mission.
Right. I mean, you had the same goal and purpose, and still the same passion that was driving you and keeping you going. That's great, man. That's awesome. A man of the people.
Right. So serving in those capacities led me to understanding how city functions are.
Right.
And how city administration works and how city budgets work and those sort of things. And so, to be honest with you, I never really considered a career in politics. There's obviously some political aspects you have to working for your department and working to as I've promoted now and been, elected as the fire chief of this department here in Sheridan, that comes with its own set of political ventures, so to speak.
Of course.
And so the conversation in our community turned to who's going to be the next mayor of our city. The current mayor is retiring after well over 30 years in office, and so it's kind of a big conversation. And
yeah, that kind of actually leads me to segue to my next question, which was, why did you decide to get into politics here in Sheridan? What drives you to decide to, hey, I'm going to venture into that and try and help the community in some way?
Well, it really boils down to what traits does it take to be a leader of a city, and what kind of background and education and experience do you need. And as I started talking to people about the subject, they started asking me, like, have you considered this?
Right.
And what do you think about this? And as I shared some of my thoughts on the growth of the city and what it would take to fill that role, the conversation just sort of naturally evolved.
Yeah.
So then, my family and I met about it several times, and we talked about it, and I went back and forth about it probably more times than a man should. I mean, to me, it's a huge decision, right? It changes everything about my life if you look at it. So the career I have in the fire service as a full-time career, I would leave that career and be the mayor, and then I would
What's a life-changing
give up my position as a fire chief. So I went back and forth about it. But at the end of the day, this is what drove me to saying yes. It was, I looked at myself and said, if I was the mayor, what would I do? How would I do it? What makes me feel like I could even accomplish those things?
Right.
What kind of support would I have from the community and the people around me? And I just couldn't tell myself not to do it.
Well, that's good. That's great. And I mean, to see, and oh man, that certainty and just the feeling of, hey, I'm making that decision now and I'm going full force and I'm putting 100% into it. That's just that. To me, it's like, hey, I've made my decision. I'm focusing on that and I'm going to achieve these goals. So speaking of goals, what are some of your goals that we have, that you have set forth for your, your election by chance? That, what kind of changes were you looking to establish or that the community needs?
So one of the fascinating things about the fact that there hasn't been a contested mayor race in almost 40 years, even prior to this mayor, is that the people in this city now that there's multiple candidates, they get to have a voice. They have a lot of people asking them, what would you like to see? What changes would you like to come about? What problems are you seeing? And so the goal through this candidacy is to make sure that I hear those things, right? And then that'll give us a baseline of where to start. But overall, I think the number one goal is defining the vision and the mission of the city moving forward.
Cool.
Right? So,
very cool.
So our city is facing a pretty exciting, energetic time and growth, and I think it's important to establish the vision moving forward as to where that growth needs to take us, right?
Okay.
So goal number one, establish a vision and a mission for the city. That's not something I could do on my own. Obviously, it would take members
Collective
of the
of
city
people.
council speaking on behalf of their people, and then it would take business leaders and stakeholders in the city to help understand what that is. Because after that, all of the goals have to resort back to that vision and mission.
Of course.
If you set this goal for, let's say,
It's
for
the
example,
driving force.
right?
Yeah.
If you look at the fire department, okay, and you say, moving forward, where does our fire department need to be? Well, that's going to be determined by the leadership of that fire department and what the city is going to need moving forward, and that all has to relate back to that vision and that mission. So that's goal number one, and then the overall goal number two, and it's very, we could get really specific.
Right,
on some of
we
these,
could talk for, I'm sure, hours on it, on what, changes or anything we need, or, the focus on it, but I don't want to take too much of that time, but still go on, sorry.
When you look at the operations of the city, you've got public safety. That includes the fire department, police department, and then there's an EMS aspect of that too with medical. All of those departments are led by someone. whether it's the chief or whoever it might be, right? And then you've got Parks and Recreation. There's a director for Parks and Recreation. And then you've got waterworks and utilities. You've got roads. All of those divisions, if you will, have somebody that's leading the charge, and they're leading their employees, and
kind of like the voice of the department.
Right. They're the voice of it. So to me, it's extremely critical to have a good relationship with those folks and understand where their departments are going, right? And how that is going to tie into the overall vision
and what they need,
of the city and what they need.
Right.
So, and I'm the kind of guy where I don't micromanage people, right? So, but what I will do is I will say, tell me where you're at. How does it take us where we need to be?
Right.
And then, what are you lacking to get there?
Good. That's fantastic. And that's a great way, because you're leaving the responsibility and you're entrusting the people who are put in that place to, establish what they need and then do problem solving on their own, but also they're communicating to you at the greater end of what they need and then allowing you to give them what they need in order to be successful. So that's fantastic, and I love that. You're not micromanaging to a T. You're entrusting that to to each department, as you will, and that's very leadership candidate worthy, in my opinion, because it's not just hounding anyone specifically on what they, or trying to micromanage specifically. But anyway, it's not about me. I can sit here and talk. I don't want to. Let's go on to the next question. So we established your goals and everything. So what qualifies you? What makes you stand out above the other candidates, essentially, in qualifying to become the next mayor?
So what qualifies me, I feel like a couple different things. Number one, I have a lot of experience as an adult traveling through a lot of different areas of my life. For example, working in the fire alarm industry has led me to not only establish a career in that, meaning I started as an apprentice. I didn't know what I was doing. Sort of worked my way through the chain. I worked on systems, I serviced them, we led installations of them, all of these different aspects of it. And all along the way, I gained experience in that trade, moving on. Now, that trade might not have anything to do with being a political figure, right, or leading a city. But what it did provide for me is a lot of experience moving through different areas of a career field, right?
Right.
So that aspect, which led me to owning my own business in the industry. So we started a few years ago. We started it because we wanted to do what we love. We had a passion for it. It grew to, what it is now, where we're providing a service for people the way we know how to do it.
Right.
So that experience, then you take the public service realm of, you start by service, serving people. You start with a passion for just wanting to help, and it leads you to developing programs that people need and finding money to fund those programs and working with local leaders and national leaders and organizations. In the fire service, I've been a part of the NFPA Public Education Network for, well over 10 years, I guess. And that has allowed me to work across the state and nationally with some other team leaders that share those experiences. I've been a part of the Arkansas Fire Marshals Association since 2010, excuse me. And, served that association in a couple of different roles on their board as their president, and that allowed me the experience to take that association where its members wanted it to be. Right. Now, we probably had some goals we didn't accomplish. The newest president's going to just jump right in and take right over that, but it allowed me to work through that. So, and then the other thing is my family. Being married to the same person for over 20 years teaches you a lot of life's lessons.
I'm sure.
I know why wedding vows are what they are now, because you go through all of those different things as a family, and then raising 4 boys.
Yeah.
Each one of my boys, while they share some similarities, they're very different from one another. I mean, anyone who knows my children will know and understand that I can't go at them the same way. Right. So I have to understand them, and I have to understand what motivates them and what drives them and how they learn and as I step through that with 4 different boys, what that does is it allows us to learn how to bring a community together that's diverse and that has different cultural backgrounds, and because everyone in this city is not the same.
Right.
So you have to look at those people and the communities and what they need and what drives them the same way as you do with everybody else that you've worked with along, in your life.
To me, that makes me think of, so you're not just having to do that for people in the public, but now you're living that. So you have to do that at home. Like, you can't treat even everyone at home the same.
No.
So which means you bring that out into the public, and it's the same thing. So you're living it 100% of the time.
That's right.
And I mean, that's a great quality of life to actually abide by. And but anyway, that's really neat, Ben. Thank you.
So to sum that up, all of the experience, all of the leadership, all of the family values and trying times has provided me with what I think a leader of a city is going to need. And that is experience, background, trust, leadership, values, to be able to put all of those things together, bring people together, and let's move forward.
Okay, great. And then we only have 2 more little questions for you. What is commonly brought to your attention as a problem in this community?
Well, I'll put that on a large scale and a small scale. So on a large scale, obviously the growth in this city, right? And
yes.
I don't know if it's necessarily brought to me as a problem, but it's a huge topic of conversation,
it is.
right? Because with that comes, what is our infrastructure?
Yep.
It's a word that every candidate in this race is using, and rightfully so, because it's a huge topic. So how does our water system and our road system and our law enforcement and EMS, how do those things, that infrastructure, how is that preparing us for the growth? There's an area of the city that, or a group of people in the city that are already working on some of those things with the program that they've started, and that's got to move forward. So that's a problem, or a definitely a growing pain that we've got to deal with.
Okay.
So there's that. There's parks and recreation. We have a very active community. Okay.
Yeah.
We have baseball, softball, playgrounds. A rec center. All of these things are part of our parks and recreation, and then there needs to be an entertainment aspect built into that. So it's a huge topic of conversation is, how do we compete with other cities to not only provide our athletes and our children, with activities and things like that, but to also draw other people in to help with that as well. And then, on a smaller level, right? And I say it kind of tongue in cheek, but it's problems that people have said, yeah, we understand infrastructure is a big deal, but to me, one of the biggest things is this, and it's, things like, recently our city went through a change where they pick up cardboard boxes now different from the regular trash pickup.
Right.
And our local administration has gone through a couple of different things to try and help solve that problem. Yeah. And have really kind of, I think, tried to listen and understand people, but that's an ongoing concern with people. And,
right.
There's a need for activities in this city for, children with special needs and children from different backgrounds. And that's something that's been brought to my attention that, may not be addressed the way that it should. So on a big scale, infrastructure, parks and recreation, public safety.
Okay.
On a smaller scale, it's all these little bitty things that people go, man, I wish we could fix that.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. And you had mentioned the cardboards and everything. That was my last question for you, was maybe you could explain some of the issues concerning the city that don't necessarily affect your life, but may affect others, and that is brought to your attention. Can you maybe give an example of that as a closing statement?
Yeah, I'll just use the example we just talked about. So now we need to separate cardboard boxes from our trash, right? So we have trash bags, trash cans, they get parked out by the street, city comes by, my house, it's Tuesday, they empty them, it's good. Yeah. On the last Tuesday of every month, when all my cardboard boxes need to be out by the street. To me,
not a big deal.
Not a big deal. I mean,
right.
We get the occasional Amazon package. but not a lot. But I've met with people in the community who own local businesses here, and they're like, man, we get 20 boxes a day. We got all this cardboard. Right. So again, while to me it's not on a huge scale, to a lot of people it is. And then there's some neighborhoods, and the current mayor has dealt with this, and I think he's done a good job at it. We just got to move forward. But there's neighborhoods where people will say, oh, my cardboard boxes are slung out on the neighborhood because on this day it was windy and all of this. So, you know, the important thing here is, number one, just talk to those folks and say, okay, I understand it's a bigger problem. Even though maybe it wasn't to me, I understand that it is to everyone else. Yeah. Here's the other thing too, and I'm not afraid to say this. I don't know that everybody would say this, but I'm not afraid to say it. I don't know if there's 50 different solutions to this problem, but I guarantee you we're not the only city that's ever had this problem. Of course. And I guarantee you I could go to the mayor and say, Mayor, walk me through how you've gotten to where you are with this, because there's certainly things that he's done or tried or hoped for that hasn't happened for whatever reason. And then, you know, building that network that I talked about earlier, I could probably reach out to a couple people and say, man, let me know a couple of these things that you did in this community. Yeah, find a solution. And find a solution that actually works better. That may not be, you know, successful here, but, you know, that has been successful somewhere else, you know, other avenues of which success. Well, that's neat. So when someone brings you something like that, though, in my opinion, here's what you have to do. Understand that on whatever scale it might mean to me, to them, it's something worth mentioning to you. So, so you take that and you say, okay, how big of an issue is it? How much time and resources do we need to put into it? How many people feel this way? And you triage it or you prioritize it and say, let's do something about it, right? If that particular problem isn't necessarily as big as, let's say, 7 holes in a water system this morning that happened, then you deal with the 7 holes in the water system and we can come back to this. Yeah. So it's going to be important to me and the staff at the mayor's office to keep a list of those things, prioritize those things, and to circle it all back around. The way you handle all of those things has to directly coincide with the vision and the mission that we built from day one, so we can understand that we're taking the right steps to move forward. Fantastic. Well, as a closing statement, Ben, do you have some credentials that you would like for me to post on there in case anyone needs to maybe email you some concerns or questions, as well as go ahead and give them the election day at which they're going to be able to actually, you know, make sure that they go out there and vote. That's right. So let's go ahead and tell the community what those are, so we can put it on there. I'll put it on the screen for you. Very quickly, let me say this about voting. It's gonna be a little bit different again, because there hasn't been a contested mayor's race here in so long. Yeah. Only the people who live inside the city limits can vote in this race. Okay. Okay. That's a good thing to know. And there are people who, on this side of the street, you're in the city limits. On this side of the street, you might not be. So only people in the city limits can vote. So understand, if you can vote and get out and do so. November 8th is the election day. 2 weeks prior to that starts early voting. Reach out to myself at votehammondformayor@gmail.com if you have any questions or concerns. Reach out to the other candidates if you have questions or concerns for them. This is a race where the three of us know each other. Yep. We have a lot of similarities, but some differences. So I have no problem saying reach out to those folks as well. And it's not hard to look us up on social media. So look me up if you have any questions, and we'll be glad to sit down and have a conversation about it. Yes, sir. And your social media stuff, I'll get that. That'll be posted on there. We'll have this broadcasted to that as well. So this is Ethan Colbert again with Century 21, and this is the Grant County Gang. So we're here closing out, and I thank you so much, Ben, for everything and the time. Yes, it's been a pleasure, and look forward to seeing y'all soon. Take care. Bye.